Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this, what is today, the 12th day of June. I'm thinking about everybody down in South Florida area. A lot of flooding down there. I was watching online as I prepare for today's program. Big game tonight. Kristaps Porzingis is out for Boston. That may be the break the Mavs are looking for. Plus, folks, if you're watching me on the Facebook app, I haven't had a problem yet, but there may be some type of problem, something about followers or something like that, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Going to go over Aaron Rodgers' unexcused absence. I think that's going to come back and bite them later on, even though it's just a mandatory minicamp, but it is air quote mandatory. And I'm going to talk about the great late passing of Jerry West, 86 years old. What I just held up here, this is the West on West 2011 memoir that the logo wrote here. I'll talk about thoughts about him, this book, his life, what he brought to the NBA. And I'm really shocked by the outpouring of respect. Guys like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, got a quote from Barkley come out for I knew that TNT would say something, NBA TV, Adam Silver. I knew those guys, and even Magic, because he played a big hand in Magic building that team in the 80s around him. So I'll talk about him as well. Let's see, what else do we got on the docket here, folks? Christian McCaffrey, man, he is on the cover of Madden. We'll talk a little Madden curse as well. But first, let's take our first and only break. I'll be back here in 49 seconds. We'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then, I'm back here live. Now, okay, tonight, Dallas was 2.5-point favorites. I think they played like 30 minutes. I may be off. They may be playing now, but I actually think the tip-off is here in 30 minutes. Even if it's at 7, it's usually at 7:10. Makes no never mind to me. Kristaps Porzingis, a rare leg injury. Shams Charania, reporter for The Athletic, he's the first that I read of it. This injury was considered day-to-day by Porzingis. I noticed that in Game 2, his minutes dropped off. I thought maybe this was not anything to do with the calf injury per se, but he's considered day by day. And I remember Porzingis yesterday saying that they'll have to kill me to get me out. Well, he's out today. It's kind of been the story of his career, the 7'3" phenom. His plus minus, by the way, 12 points. He was a big deal for Boston coming back here. As I said, this could be the opening for the Mavericks. The Mavericks got to win tonight no matter what. No team's never come back in NBA history from 0-3 deficit. 3 hours for the game. Only guy out there in court was Kyrie Irving. He knows that there is a lot he knows that there's a lot on him tonight. I expect him to have a good game, probably 18 to 25 points, my guess is. And I know that, like I said on, was it Monday's program, that Luka Doncic looks like Frankenstein out there. He had some type of shot put in his chest from an injury from game one, still finished with a triple-double. Looked like he ran out of gas at the end of Sunday night's game. And, of course, they end up losing. I think they play well tonight and win. Not sure about Porzingis. I know he's going to play. He's already been ruled active and whatnot. But, we'll have to see. They're going to need a lot of bench help tonight. I think they'll get that. I think they'll get that from their role players. Your P.J. Washington's, I know he's not a bench player, but you get what I'm saying. Your Tim Hardaway's, P.J. Watt, Dante Exum, and definitely Derek Lively. Big drop-off there from Porzingis to their backups. Who was it? Pritchard and 38-year-old Al Horford is their other big there. So Dallas really needs to take advantage if their back's going to be. I think they win in the blowout, say 125, 108, something of that nature. And we're going to go in at 2-1 coming into game 4, which is still pivotal for the Dallas Mavericks. But we'll see. I mean, Boston has a tendency to rise above on the road. I wouldn't be surprised if they did win this game. I just don't expect them to win this particular game here. All righty then. Okay, going into, by the way, let me make this announcement. Well, yesterday I was in a program. I had some car trouble here. You know, I'm working, folks. 3 jobs here. 3 jobs. This is a job. I love sports. It's fun, it's hobby and everything, but this is considered a job. You know, as soon as I get home around, 3:30 Central Time till 6. I mean, I'm busy putting stuff up, making notes, keeping up on my notes here, taking showers, eating something, and getting ready for the program. And I look up, it's like 6:55 Central. This is considered a job too. Preparation, and then, of course, the actual hour on the air talking to you all. But also, I do a carrier job. That's 8 hours, 7.5, 8 hours, depending on how fast I can get done with my route here. And then, of course, I drive for Carver Ties, who's been paying me, and I appreciate that. Put logos on my vehicle. I drove for them last weekend. We had the Music City Fest here. Huge festival here in Nashville. A lot of big country music, even Southern rock bands. Leonard Skinner was here, Morgan Wallen and whatnot, doing that. And also I've signed up for Uber, but I haven't done it yet. And all that is to advertise this program. But yesterday I had a battery that went out, and I had to get it. I wasn't really sure if that's exactly what it was. Get that changed, get some other work. Well over $1,000, go figure. But that's all for the sacrifice to keep this program up and going and grow this particular program, you know. But it on the way home, I'll stop by my logo place, and I've got to do this on. I haven't got a chance to do this on the program, but the name of the show is The Real Sports Scope now. You know, speaking of Facebook, I told you all this, that my page, Sports Scope, was hacked. The page was hacked. And, you know, I've talked to Morgan people about it. And first they said they was going to take it. Now they're not. And they talked to the Tennessee Bar Association or whatever. But the name of this show, and I said I need to change the title, but it's called The Real Sports Scope now. Like Real Man Wear Black. Remember those old Raider shirts here and logos? So it's The Real Sports Scope. I've got to update everybody and everything. But for now on forward, that's what this show will be called. And, you know, we'll start investing more into online advertising. Probably not Facebook until they get their freaking act together. But we're going to get this show off the ground as soon as possible. Okay? So that was just one of those FYIs. Probably should have did at the beginning of the program, but I'm doing it now. And it's called The Real Sports Scope. Just look at it that way. Still spelled the same. Just add the real in front of it. Sports Scope with a K. Now, if you Google the show, if you Google it, it'll still come up. You'll still be able to see my logo here. of course, Google will try to correct you because that's not the proper way to spell it. But of course, that is by intents, so it won't get confused with anything else. And you'll be able to see it pop up here. Yeah, it still comes up here, the old shows here on the Google search. So, all right, now let's see. Aaron Rodgers, I know this is yesterday's news and whatnot. Unexcused absence. Robert Saleh. A lot of people getting on Robert Saleh for bringing it up. Hey, listen, this guy's the quarterback of the team. Rodgers, he's 39, about to be 40 later. I want to imagine. I imagine, and coming off an Achilles injury. Okay, you've got an upgraded offensive line. I know these are mandatory, but they are mini camps. And it's not the fact that he's going to be off on a throw for not getting this practice in or anything of that nature. We all know that. But it's the principle of this. It's what that the rest of this team sees. When he's talking about being all in, well, you're going to be all in. Okay? And nobody really knows what he was up to day before yesterday, or was it yesterday? During practice, whether he was at one of these psychedelic events or anything like that, some political event, nobody knows. Remember, he was actually, if you don't recall, Robert Kennedy was actually considering Aaron Rodgers for a vice presidential candidate and whatnot. Rodgers, politely turned him down and stuff like that. But, also, this has been in the news here over the last few weeks that Robert Saleh is wanting to get, the head coach there, from a defensive background, wanting to get more involved in the offense. Now, I've said this before in the past. I do think that coaches, once you become the head coach, I think in the offseason, I really do think in the offseason, you really have to learn as much about the offensive side as possible. Put the time in. He's a younger guy, only a few years older than myself. Put the time in, learn that. But you don't want to override somebody who's had 15 years in experience in putting your own thing in there. We saw what happened with Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick, and that group with the Patriots just a few years ago, putting a second-year quarterback in there. And having Matt Patricia and Joe Judge learn the offense on the fly. Joe Judge was a special teams coach. Patricia coming from a defensive background, doing a quick study and saying, okay, we're just going to use I also heard that they were trying to use stuff from Madden. I mean, it really got embarrassing there. You don't want that to be a part of it. I don't know if it's to that extent, but the reports have come out. The Saleh's wanting to get involved in the offense. I hope not to that much. It also goes to show you that maybe Nathaniel Hackett's offense is not going to cut it. It's not crisp enough. There's some issues there. There was some complaints about the blocking scheme Rodgers had last year coming into even though he was supposed to be Hackett's guy. Remember, that was the former Green Bay Packers guy that worked with Aaron Rodgers going back to Green Bay. But Rodgers had issues with the offensive line technique last year, and we know what happened. And a few snaps in, the guy tears his Achilles. Now, again, two things can be true. Yes, I have talked up the Jets. I do like their roster. I do like their pass rush. I like their second year. Was it McDonald, the pass rusher there? I like Sauce Gardner on the back end. All that can be true. And I like the fact of their draft picks, bringing in Tyron Smith here. I forgot the guy's name that they drafted out of Penn State. The left tackle, the first-round pick, the trade with Baltimore. They've done some good things to this offensive line. They have totally I wouldn't use the word fix because we haven't seen them play yet. They made the proper adjustments to that. Two things can be true. The over and under is about 9.5 wins. But if you look at Rodgers, there's some discontent with him and Salif. I can already start to see that. Salif would have never made that. He would have never made that comment that this is an unexcused absence if there's not any kind of tension between him and Aaron Rodgers. Okay. So 9.5 is about what I think they're going to be. They're going to be about a 9 or 10 borderline wild card team. That's if Rodgers plays. That's I forgot who their backup. I want to say like Chase Daniels or somebody. I mean, it's they don't have the greatest backup in the world. They have upgraded their receiving core. Mike Williams, if he stays healthy, that was why he was let go by the LA Chargers. But I will say this: they have a manageable schedule. It's a little rough early. Going to San Francisco opening night and then going to Tennessee on a short week there, not knowing anything Tennessee's going to throw at them. That's a little bit of a rough start, but then they have New England, Denver, Minnesota, which they got to go to London to play Minnesota there. But I tell you what, I do like that week 12 bye of the Jets. Then they get a Seattle at home, at Miami, at Jacksonville, who's going to be that's going to be a tough out down there in Jacksonville late in the season. And then a Rams at home is no easy out. And then a Buffalo, Miami. So it's the late bye is good, but they also play an Arizona. They also play, like I said, a Minnesota, a Denver, a New England twice, who's going to be bad. Could be the worst team in the league. By the way, Keith Engel will be back on the program next Wednesday. Note that Keith Engel, I said this in New England. He's a big Patriot guy. I followed him for a long time. Tried to get him on today. He was busy. I was kind of last minute. But with this stuff coming out about Jerry West, that was good for me. Turned out to be good because I'm going to talk about him here in a little bit. But I think that at best, this team will probably be a wild card team. I haven't got this ain't an official prediction because I like to do mine as close to the season as possible because of injuries in camp and whatnot. But I'll say this: they're probably a 9-8, 10-win team. Even if they get to the playoffs, I think Woody Johnson will fire Salif, and I think Rodgers will retire. Now, hate to be a naysayer like that, but that's about right. That 9.5, and John, I just don't think Salif is going to get. They need an offensive-minded head coach, and I think he's going to be back, probably working with the 49ers somewhere this time next year. We'll be talking about that. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's the NFL. Who's it? Jerry Reese, I think, or Glanville used to joke around. That means not for long. Not laughing about anybody getting fired, but it's the nature of the beast, per se. You know what I'm saying? All righty then. Speaking of NFL, big news out of San Francisco. Now, you gamers in the world, y'all going to like this, especially you fantasy football guys, you Madden lovers. This is going to be a big deal here for you. Christian McCaffrey on the cover of Madden. And, I didn't know this, but I didn't know McCaffrey's 28 years old. I had this thought in my head he was like 30. He must have got drafted because I remember this guy's on his like third or fourth contract now. He's got a 2-year extension with the 49ers. I mean, he was all that last year and a cup of soup, running really well with that Kyle Shanahan blocking scheme off of Trent Williams there. I like what he did. Great year last year. Great year every year he's been with this 49er team. And that scheme is perfect for what he is doing here. But mind you, Super Bowl loser, that's a strike. and being on the Madden cover, that has been a curse and a half for players, especially folks, running backs. And there was an article. Does the Madden curse exist by CBS? I'll tell you what. There's a big picture of Christian McCaffrey. All you fantasy drafters, Rich Ferris, and all of you guys, I know you don't want to hear this, but I don't know if it's just the hype, the individual accolades. Remember, he was in the running for MVP last year. Could have gotten the MVP. But, this article says at CBS, if you're a football fan, there's a healthy chance you haven't heard of the Madden curse. And I tell you, this goes back 25 years we're talking about here. And one of the first players it mentions, Nashvilleian, since I'm out of Nashville, was Eddie George in 2001. I remember that really well that year. George went on a rush for more than 1,500 yards in his cover season, air quote, cover season, but also lost a career-high number of fumbles, coughed up the ball in Titans season-ending playoff game, and averaged 3.4 yards after his career. He did fall off after that. And then you hear about guys like Dante Culpepper in 02 with his injury history there. Marshall Faulk in 03. Had a fault broken down, missing half his starts, never topped 1,000. And 04, I remember 04s with Michael Vick. I remember that injury pretty well. He had a fractured fibula. And this was in a Baltimore game, in a preseason game where they, he only played a number of snaps. He took off. One of the players for the Ravens grabbed his ankle, got a fracture there, and then later on he did 4 years. 4 years later, ended up going to prison. This article puts him as being cursed here. Ray Lewis in 2005. 140-something tackles that year, but he did miss 10 games. I remember he got injured that year. Donovan McNabb went on to miss 8 games. I mean, this thing is really interesting, Pickles. But look at the running backs here. Look at the running backs to the Madden curse. Sean Alexander, he got injured. Now, Vince Young, 2000. Vince Young was coming off of a Rookie of the Year type of deal there. And I think it was in 07 or whatnot. 06, 07. Put him on in 08, which really the 7th season. It says 08 on the cover, but really it's the season prior to that. So it was his second year. Vince Young, total bust here. Yes, he was cursed here. Favre in 09. If you recall, Brett Favre in 09 with the Jets, he got off to a great start that year. But he got injured, banged up. They finished 9-7. Then he later on went to Minnesota, almost got to the Super Bowl. Made that horrible interception at the end. Then the year after that, his career was pretty much over with. I mean, he got injured all that last year and called it a career, and I don't blame him there. You also guys like Troy Polamalu, Larry Fitzgerald, MCL injuries here. Even Drew Brees. I thought Brees went to the Super Bowl and he broke the curse. But according to this, he was on the 2010. That was the year after the Super Bowl. They went no down. They won the Super Bowl. They upset Drew Brees. They upset the Colts that year. That was when he got asked for a lot of money. And, of course, he got ended up getting hurt that year. This is one of the worst ones. Also a running back, Pickles, Peyton Hillis. Man, did he have a great year in 2011. I mean, this is a fullback playing like a running back, former Cleveland Brown. I think he saved somebody at the beach and almost died earlier this year. Thank God he's okay. Peyton Hillis, former, I think he was Arkansas running back. Former Arkansas running back, had one great year, got some money there with the Cleveland Browns, if you recall, Pickles. But man, did he get injured that next year, and he was never the same. Missed a half dozen games, only 3.6 yards per carry. And those are all running backs, Pickles. Pickles says he fell off the cliff. All running back. Then you look at now, a lot of people say this, and I cannot argue with them. In 2013, Calvin Johnson supposedly broke the curse. You know, he had both a career year and historic year. He was on the cover like Barry Sanders before him. He retired relatively a few years later, but in 2012 saw him post a whopping 1964, almost 2,000 yards receiving. A lot of that was in double coverages down the field. You could say he broke the curse, but then you got guys like in 2013, the injuries mount up for your Adrian, again with the running backs, Pickles, again with the running backs. But it looks like a lot of these receivers, including, by the way, Tom Brady was on there too in 2018, which is 2017 season, but technically they did lose. But the running backs on here, even if you want to throw in Lamar Jackson as a running back here, it just it's about 58% is what this article says. And it's about, in my opinion, it's 100% on the running back. So if you're drafting this year, in fantasy, I say all that to say this. I would draft the Jabari Gibbs from Detroit. Or who's the guy now? Who's the running back, Pickles, with the Eagles now? Former Giant there. Maybe one of those two guys over Christian McCaffrey. Gibbs is going to be all that. I think Gibbs is going to be great. Second-year running backs. Look at the stat. Guys like Chris Johnson from Tennessee, 2,000 yards plus. The game slows down for these particular players. One of the best, maybe the best line in football in Detroit now that Jason Kels here has retired from the Eagles. Although I do like the Eagles running back here. Now I'm trying to think of his name. I can't. Think of his name. They still got a good line though. They still have a good line in Philadelphia. But I think that Detroit line will be better. And a lot of it is simply the line you have behind you at Saquon Barkley. I think he can have a great year too. He's going to have a lot to prove. I think he'll be in great shape from the Eagles. That left side led by Lane, longest Lane, or right side with Lane Johnson longest. And that Maluga, whatever his name is, the other left tackle. Those guys are really good, well compensated. I think they're going to be. I would not draft Christian McCaffrey after he got on the cover of Madden yesterday. Fantasy alert. Jabari Gibbs, and I know he shares I know he shares with David Montgomery, but you see more and more, and we saw this towards the playoffs there, implementing Jabari Gibbs more and more and more into that offense. And a side note, 49er fans, keep an eye out in case he does get hurt of Cody Schrader. Cody Schrader, undrafted free agent out of Missouri, had a huge year last year, ran all over Tennessee, ran over everybody in his path. Not a good 40-time guy, but a really good between the tackles guy. By the way, Terrell Davis ran under Shanahan's dad's system. Also, I want to say Davis was undrafted out of Georgia. This guy's undrafted out of Missouri. Keep an eye out for Cody Schrader out of Missouri. Could slip in there. I know you got Elijah Molden and everything, or Mitchell, whatever. They got a good depth chart. But this guy, keep an eye out for him. I think he could be a big steal there for you in later. That could be an undrafted free agent guy out of in your fantasy drafts at the end where you might want, or waiver wire guy. Just food for thought. And that's something that I'll clip later on if that turns out to be true. But anyways, okay. All right, as you heard me at the very beginning, Jerry West passed away today. Now, Jerry West's 86 years old, Pickles. And the guy, I saw him, and I'm going to play a cut here in a minute. I saw Jerry West and last year, and the guy always looks like he's about 62. He takes really good care of himself, nice suit all the time, always looks to be in really good shape. Did not think about the guy's 86 years old, passed away today at his home. Nobody said what it is. I mean, like Chris Rock would say, at a certain age, no matter, he was joking around John McCain when he was running for president. Or it wasn't John McCain. Who was that guy that ran for president in against Bill Clinton? He was older then in the 90s. I forgot his name now, but after a certain age, I think after 80, I want to say Chris Rock said, if you get hit by a car, it's natural causes, you know? So West lived a really good life here. Great memoir. I found it in my closet there, Pickles. On my drawer here. I had to wipe all the dust off. 2011 memoir called West on West, and the cover of this book has got him driving down the court. If you look real close, I looked at it 4 or 5 times. I realized that's the actual NBA logo. Jerry West here passed away today. Got some screenshot. This guy, man, what a record! What a career that West has had. And Magic Johnson, I'll read some of what he said, but he wrote a long post on Urban Magic Johnson on the great Jerry West. 9-time NBA champion, one as a player. And he talks about in this book how devastated he was to lose to those Celtics teams. He was from, I think it's called Cheyenne. I want to say Cheylon, West Virginia, about 14 miles outside of Charleston, West Virginia, according to his book here. But anyways, 14-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA first team. That means you're the best of the best. 10-time All-NBA first team. Won the night, and I've never heard of this before, and I've never heard of this after. Guy won the 1969 Finals MVP, and he was on the losing team. That's how good he played. He outplayed the best players on the winning team, right? 2-time Executive of the Year. Probably could have won that 4 or 5 times. Probably could have. Just Jerry West. I mean, here's a little something. I'm not going to read the whole thing here and get too clogged up with reading stuff. But Magic Johnson said, I met Jerry West for the first time in 1979 at the Forum, the old Forum, where he introduced me to Bill Sherman. All this, by the way, is in that great show. I'm sure you can find it on HBO Max, Winning Time, the story about the Lakers dynasty. And it's off of a book, too, called Winning Time. But all these names are familiar to me because I remember watching that docuseries, which was awesome, by the way. West hated it. He hated it because it talked about him having a really bad temper. But back to Urban Magic Johnson. He said, met West first time in 79 at the Forum where he introduced me to Bill Sherman, a guy named Chick Hiram, and the Laker owner then, this is before Dr. Buss, Jack Cancoke, my father, agent, and I negotiated over lunch. Then Jerry took me to the locker room to show me Laker jerseys. I started to cry, and Jerry explained to me the expectation of wearing the purple gold, how he saw my role, and how he envisioned me fitting into the organization. I'll never forget that moment. He said, when training camp began, he gave me so many golden nuggets and really critiqued every facet of my game. After every practice, he would give me notes on how I could get better. Those sessions carried over to the regular season. Once a week, we went over what I needed to improve on, what I could do to dominate the league. Those meetings meant everything to me because I learned so much from him. A very kind-spirited, giving man, despite the fact that he's looked at as just such a raw competitor here. And I think I had something on Jordan. Michael Jordan said something about Jerry West too, and I want to see if I can get a quote from the great MJ. Jordan said, I've always wished I could have played against him as a competitor, but the more I saw, the more I came to get to know him. I wish I had him as a teammate. He will be forever missed. Rest in peace, Logo. Jordan put, I heard the news this morning, probably about 9:45 a.m. Central Time, and Jordan already had a statement out. I mean, that's how much respect. For example, in the Ford in his book, West by West, My Charmed Tormented Life, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. Here, you got guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a very quiet, often saw as a standoffish kind of guy, can be saw as rude, very internal, cerebral person, really liked to stay to himself, had that much respect for Jerry West here. I mean, that's the kind of respect that he commended as a player. He's a 3-time Hall of Famer. He was college basketball, played for the University of West Virginia, NBA player, and also he was a NBA Executive Hall of Fame. He's a 3-time Hall of Famer here. Not to mention the fact that he saw something in Pat Riley as a coach. He didn't like coaching. Did not like coaching. Said it just if you watch you watch the Winning Time show documentary, it almost just ate at him. He hated to coach because of the anxiety. He wouldn't live to be 86 if he would have stayed coaching. The stress was too much for him. But he saw something in Pat Riley, who was just an announcer at that time. I want to say during this 82, and Dr. Buss said, no, we want you, Jared. No, we're not splitting anything, is what Jared, if you watch the show and it's in the book, we're not splitting anything. This is actually on video. They come and do a press conference talking about, Dr. Buss, they're going to split time coaching, and then the show, Jared West, like, you're the coach, Pat. I see it in you. Let me run the operations. You coach. The rest is history. Okay. And then championships later, he was an executive there from all the way up to 2000. We're talking 82 to 2000 and whatnot. So we're talking 5 rings there. Shaq, or with Magic and Magic, Kareem, Worthy, that group there, Perkins, I want to say. And just by the way, so he stays there to 2000, right? So you go through that group. Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to 1996. All right. Went through a little bit of low there. Magic, he contracted the HIV in 91. They had a low there from Magic until 1996. 1996 draft in June of 96. That was a big year. He saw something in this guy, former Laker player, Jelly Bean Bryant, this 17-year-old out of Philadelphia, Kobe Bryant. Mind you, folks, Kobe was originally drafted by Charlotte. He was originally drafted by Charlotte, and West, being the hustler that he is and on the ball as an executive, just like he was as a player, he worked out a deal. I looked that up today. He worked out a 3-team deal to get Kobe. Kobe said he didn't want to play for them, play yada, yada, yada. But West is working his rear end off. He traded longtime Laker Vadi Divac, involved in a 3-team trade with, who was it, Vadi Divac? I want to say something to do with Anthony Mason and the Knicks. This was a really complex trade to get that 13th overall pick with Kobe Bryant here in 96. Then later on that summer, and I remember they even made a documentary about this. Shaq was coming up for contract 96. Okay. Shaq was drafted 92, had great years with the Magic. We was all looking at, I was only 15 there, but I was just thinking, what they're going to give Shaq like $100 million to extend him with the Orlando Magic here. And we're watching TV. I've always been into sports like this. And I know they're going to give this guy a ton of money. Him and Penny Hardaway, they're going to do their thing. Although Penny had his Shaq was in the commercials and stuff then. He was in the Hollywood. But the talk was it's still going to be Orlando to re-sign the Big Shaq. And sure enough, working his rear end off behind the scenes, Jerry West makes it happen. I remember Shaq saying, I really like the way they treat us here, and particularly Jerry. And he just dwarfs Jerry West. Jerry West's only 6'3", Shaq's well over 7 foot, right? Big giant Shaq, and he says, everything I ask of Jerry to help me out with, he'll help me out with it. We'll see what we can do. And he started making all these requests. He's talking about this at the press conference. Lakers gave Shaq a massive deal to hook him up with this young guy, this young high school player, which I didn't think much of at the time. A 17-year-old with a well of a work ethic, and Kobe Bryant here. Shaq had already been in the league, obviously, since 92. He's a few years older. And all that was Jerry West. And then they had Dale Harris. If you all recall, they had Dale Harris there. The guy had been everywhere. Guy that looks like Donahue, that coach. Pickles, remember him? So they had Dale Harris here. So West looks at that. He looks at Shaq. He looks at Kobe. He looks at this development. He says, Dale Harris is not the guy. So they do away with Harris in 99. We know what happened after the 97, 98 year. Well, Phil Jackson walked away for a year. They went out, put Phil Jackson in there together, and we know what happened after that. End up winning the championship year, went out there, got Phil Jackson there, put that he was the last piece of that puzzle. And I tell you, I favored the Eastern Conference teams. I hated that team because, man, I knew they were almost impossible to beat at times, particularly that 2001 team that we talked about the other day here, that I talked about on this program, that was one of the better teams of all times. I think they lost they lost one game, I want to say, in the playoffs, and that was because they were that was in the finals, and they had so much rest from sweeping everybody that Allen Iverson just shot the lights out and won that first game. They're a little flat there, but they dominated after that. They may have lost 2 games. It doesn't make any difference. That was better. That was a great, great team. But let me tell you what happened. He was a big-time principal guy. He didn't take a lot of crap from anybody. He would meet you at the airport, though, as a general manager, make you feel like you're at home, make you feel like you're a family member, But he's not going to be pushed around, and I'll talk about that here in a minute, going back to his guy's childhood. But he wanted to say something to the team after a game. one time in 2000, I want to say. They did win that championship that year. But this was after he done orchestrated his team, including hiring Phil Jackson. And Phil Jackson told him to get the F out of there. And Phil Jackson embarrassed Jerry Buss, Pickles. He embarrassed Jerry Buss in front of that whole team. Or not Jerry Buss, Jerry West. And Jerry West went up to Dr. Buss, the owners, and said, hey, man, you going to let him talk to me like that? I just wanted to say a quick little something, let him do his thing. And he's a very principled guy. And Dr. Buss said, well, it's his team. I said, okay, well, all right. So he leaves, goes in 2004, builds up Paul Gasol, Memphis Grizzlies, won Executive of the Year after that with Memphis. Got Memphis deep in the playoffs, run Zebo, all those guys. That's all Jerry West taking this nobody franchise here from Vancouver to Memphis and makes them a competitive playoff team. You know, a few years later, same guy. A few years later, goes up to Golden State. Golden State, folks, I forgot they were in the league for a while. I knew that they were pretty good in the early 90s. I think Tim Hardaway started with them, Sprewell, those guys. But there was, who was the other guy? Makes no, never mind. White guy shoot the lights out. Chris Mullen. But that period after those guys, there was about 10, 12 years that Golden State would look like a team. I forgot. I was still a friend of mine. I said, oh, yeah, they're in the league. I forgot Golden State's in the league. Well, he built that Steph Curry team. And this mentions this when I'm reading about him. From 2011 to 17, that's championship years. That is Jerry West's handprints all over. He played a big part in getting Kevin Durant there, making people feel welcome when they were really dominated. So then he leaves there. I don't know why, but he leaves there, and then he goes to the Clippers, and he's more of an advisor. We're talking later years now, 2018, the guy's late 70s. And, of course, Clippers, if it wasn't for, Kawhi Leonard's injury, they might have done something, but he played a big part in that. The guy's been a winner everywhere he's been, Pickles. It's 2017. Absolutely everywhere he's been. Going back to growing up in the 50s in West Virginia, this strong desire to win big, to get out of coal mine areas. Nick Saban, ironically, arguably the greatest coach of all time. And they've only got Wes listed as an 8-time winner as an executive. But again, there's 3 other championships that with the Lakers had that had his fingerprints all over them. He just left because of Phil Jackson's attitude. But reading this book, he did not like living in West Virginia. At 12 years old, me and him got a lot in common, Pickles. I told you all about how I used to argue with my stepdad, and we had a really bad fallout one time. I said, you need to be shot in the head, and he chased me to McDonald's. I told you that story before. Made up with him before he died of cancer just a few years before he died. But when he was 12, he slept with a shotgun under his bed. 12 years old, Pickles. 12 years old, and he told his dad, his real dad, if the abuse didn't stop, they come from that area where you just beat kids half to death, I guess. I don't know. He was going to kill his dad. He would never been the Jerry West we knew. That's the kind of torment that he grew up in. And the more I read it and listen to Jerry West, the more I think about basketball was escapism to him. He put his escapism into basketball. He was walking home from the gym one day, played for hours and hours and hours. Just loved it. Loved basketball. And he overhears this couple look at him, and you can kind of hear people sit on the porch a lot back in those days. And they said, this wife said that her husband, this older woman, said he ain't never going to amount to anything. And he remembered that. And once he left University of West Virginia in the early 60s, he go play for the Lakers, number 2 overall pick. I can't remember what year is it. I think it was 64. He says, I never went back. never went back to never went back to West Virginia. So you could see where this uber competitive edge has come from in Jerry West here. You know, so JJ Redick, this was just to tell you how competitive this guy was. I didn't realize how old he was. He's 80. What I'm going to play for you, he's 85 years old. If I can get this to play, I'm going to play it. JJ Redick, he's still a candidate to be the Lakers coach, ironically. They can't find a coach. Said something about Bob Cousy and his era. Took a shot at the players there, saying that there'd be plumbers and all that crap. And let me play this cut here. But
join me as I take a
give you some context here. Jerry West did not like the winning time portrayal of him. Furious temper, throwing stuff out. He threatened to sue HBO and everything for this. But watching him, this is on Sirius XM radio last year, a year ago, take a shot at JJ Redick for disrespecting Bob Cousy. His hand is shaking. I don't think it's from some type of disease. I think he got mad. I got mad. And listen to Jerry West. It's that fiery competitor he is. Listen up. Good stuff.
JJ Redick, a current player who just recently retired, said that Bob Cousy played against firemen and plumbers, and Bob came on and wasn't too pleased. And you played in that era, and those guys set the table for us to be where we are today. And I was just interested in your thoughts on comments like that about your generation and the generations that paved the way.
Well, obviously the game is completely different. The athletes are completely different. And I know JJ just a little bit. He's a very smart kid and everything. But tell me what his career looked like.
When he's talking this, Pickles, tell me, his hands, he was fine, just like I'm looking at you now, straight faced the way I'm looking at you all now. Then when this guy's taking a shot at him, his hand starts to do like this. And then his face goes straight. I mean, this tells you how competitive he really is, even at older age.
But tell me what his career looked like.
Tell me what his career looked like.
What did he do that determined games? He averaged 12 points a game in the league. Somewhere along the way, numbers count. At that point in time, the players aren't what they used to be. JJ certainly wasn't going to guard the elite players. And so you can nitpick anyone. And I'm not, the only reason I'm talking about him is because he was not an elite player, but he was a very good player. But he had a place on the team because of his ability to shoot the ball. But those players at that era, and again, that was when I started to see the difference in athleticism. My era, I was an athlete way before my time. I had a huge vertical. Probably no one in the league was much faster than me. And certainly the competitive part of it, I would put myself among any player that played the game today.
Yeah, and that's true. I believe it by looking at some of the stuff he did. Pickles, he's mad, man. He was mad. And Wes knew he was mediocre and saw it. He knew that he was just trying to go viral with that pick, with that comment. Now here's Charles Barkley on the great Jerry West passing today in pregame.
Of course, we start
It's NBA
today's
TV.
coverage with the news of Jerry West passing away at the age of 86. So, Chuck, when you heard that news today and you think back to knowing Jerry West, what's the first thing that came to your mind?
Just how gracious he was to me and all the players. You know, I obviously didn't know a lot about, you had to learn about his life as a player through highlights and through conversations. But, man, you talk about just a great guy to be around. Man, it's been a rough week between him and Bill Walton. It's been a rough week for our NBA family. Hey, I said the same thing about Bill Walton. The world is not as good as it was yesterday. The world was a better place with Mr. West being in it. And, man, this is a tough one, man, because, you know, when you meet some of these legends, some of them are different. Some of them are bitter and angry, but some of them are so amazing, like Jerry to me, Clifford Ray, guys like that, Dave Beam, Junior Griffith, the older guys who just so want to help the young guys prosper. And I tell people all the time, man, what a good man. And we're gonna miss it, man. This was a tough one. Like I said the same thing about Bill Walton, man. This
It really was, and he had temper and everything, but he was a good guy. James Worthy come from North Carolina, small town, drafted to the Lakers, Showtime, all that. He was told there was voices around in this book here that he wasn't going to make it. He just and Wes said, "Let me work with him. Let me work with him." You know, Wes met Worthy at the airport. Worthy was homesick. He said, "Man, if you need me as a friend, whatever, I'm going to be here for you." Okay. We know what James Worthy later on, as the years went on in 1988, won the Finals MVP. Big part of that that Showtime Laker team as things got better. So a lot of that is contributed to the influences of the great Jerry West. So he will be missed. He's one of my personal favorites. I listen to every interview I get a chance to of Jerry West because I really admire the guy. Him as an executive for what he accomplished. So I wanted to end that show with that and give West plenty of time to talk about. Pickle says Reddick knew he couldn't carry West's jersey. No. Yeah. And I was watching some of West's highlights here. You know, Reddick was one of those Duke guys that just barely made it, be honest with you. You know, he wasn't he was more of a spot-up shooter guy, you know. I mean, I like the guy. I like him standing up to Kendrick Perkins and stuff. But you can't really judge people on their life here. So, Jerry West, 86 years old. By the way, tomorrow, Carlos will be back tomorrow, Thursday. Not sure if we're going to have a show Friday. I may have to work Friday night. But the Mad New Yorker will be back tomorrow, and I'll ask him about Jerry West. We'll talk about tonight's game and whatnot. And we'll see. Possibly, by the way, Keith Engel will be on next Wednesday. Going to work on a few other guests here for next week as well. So stand by. We got a lot of good sports scope coming up, especially coming up this summer. Going to get as many interviews as I can. Not going to name any yet till I get them actually locked down here. So again, have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, same time, same place here on Sports Scope.